Hey, welcome back to the Laptop Lifestyle Dad Show. I've got an amazing guest lined up for you today. Merv, g'day Merv, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jeff? From down under?
Fantastic. From down under, yeah,
From
that's
down-
right. We're gonna love this. How this is an international podcast. I love it. So, guys, if you're just tuning in for the first time, this podcast is called the Laptop Lifestyle Dad Show. This is the Hero Maker season. I'm out here interviewing amazing people like Merv, learning all about what it takes to become a leader who creates other leaders. It's a different conversation when you focus on it from this perspective. We all go into leadership and thinking, I'm going to be the leader. But what I found in that space is what that culture creates is almost that rock star celebrity sort of culture. When you focus on being a leader who creates other leaders, it's all about otherness rather than egocentric. And so I'm here today interviewing amazing guests like Merv, unpacking what it takes to be a hero maker. So welcome to the show. We're about to get kicked off here with an amazing episode with Merv. But I'd love for you to go and subscribe if you haven't already, where you can find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And thanks to our amazing partnership with the Los Angeles Tribune, this podcast can be found on the LATPN network as well. So, Merv, I always like to start with our guest here as a way to ground to our audience so they can get to know you as well. And the best way I found to do this, Merv, is to share our stories. So, Merv, what's your story?
Well, I guess I'm a bit of a unicorn, Jeff, because I'm one of those people who went to school specifically for a specific degree and then stayed in that particular career path for over 40 years.
That sounds really bizarre. I have
It
never
is
heard of
bizarre.
someone doing that.
I don't know. I hardly know anybody who has stayed in the same career path.
Not
I went
these days.
Not these days. No, I went to school for, I got my degree in computer science.
Hmm.
Went into programming. And I loved your introduction. You said that some people like to become leaders. I just wanted to be a programmer. I just wanted to make a little bit of money, have my weekends free, go fishing, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But as I started to get into the system development environment and started working with teams, my career really sprouted. I ended up doing major projects for major organizations in 2
Yeah,
Canadian
wow.
provinces and 20 US states. So
Wow.
you can imagine the airline. I've got over 4 million miles on airlines. Now, what's that got to do with leadership? Well, I did start off becoming that programmer, or what we call a developer today, and got promoted into team leadership, then into assistant project management, then into project management, then into project directorship, eventually becoming a vice president. And each of those steps required me to hone my leadership skills.
So was that leadership track, like you've climbed the corporate ladder essentially, was that very intentional or you just found yourself being promoted because you were just so good at your role?
No, the company that I worked for at that time, I spent 14 years with one company. That's also a bit of a unicorn
Mm,
moment. But that company very specifically kept us in every career path for at least 2 years
yeah.
and groomed us for the next path. It wasn't like we would jump just because we were marvelous. We had to
Yeah.
be grounded in what we knew.
I love that approach. I think that's something we've lost in today's society. In our what I call our microwave society, everybody wants to be microwaved really quickly and instant gratification. And I've had to learn in my own journey as well, and other masters in their game that I talk to. Sometimes we need to slow this down and we need to learn how to do our apprenticeship, right?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you where that really helped me a lot. I didn't realize it back then because obviously I was one of those that when I got hold of that bit, I wanted it.
Yeah.
Where it really helped me was as I became a project manager and had teams of 30, 40, 50, 70 people, no one could fool me as to what they were doing because I understood every step of the
Yeah.
way.
There you go. I love that. I teach a lot of entrepreneurs, to outsource, to delegate, but to learn how to do the fundamentals first. So when you are outsourcing or delegating, that you're not having the wool pulled over your eyes. That
Oh, absolutely.
you're not having someone leading you down the garden path because you know better. You've got a sort of a base understanding, right? So I love that you hit that point. And Merv, I want to say thank you as well for showing up today because you're not feeling that well. But leaders show up when when you're not feeling well. There's something that talks about a leadership gifting in itself there. So thank you very much for still saying yes to showing up and committing to this call. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome, Jeff. I accidentally picked up a cold when I was in the tropics on vacation, and the worst thing in the world is a summer cold, and I brought that home with me. But I'm here.
Uh,
I'm
yeah,
enjoying this. I'm enjoying
I
this cold.
I must admit I was a little bit sick last week myself. I think I might have got a touch of COVID. I actually don't know. The whole house got sick. But anyway, um, we're actually on a big vacation in about a week's time as we're recording this episode, and so we're coming up to a bucket list adventure. My wife and I are set up to do this road trip from LA to Miami. It's been a dream trip of ours for that we've wanted to do for a while. And then I got sick last week, and I've just gone, no, I don't want to be sick on this trip. Anyway, it's all good. We're recovered. We're all good. We're going off in a couple of days, and everything's going to be great. But that's part of life. It's also part of leadership, right? It's what I call stepping up above the line culture. It's above the line is a space of training around ownership and accountability and responsibility, letting your yes be your yes, being a person of integrity. Below the line is blame, excuse, and denial. And I know through my own experience, human nature, there are times where I want to be below the line, and it's quite comfortable to be below the line, but it takes something to say, nah, I'm going to rise above it. I'm going to step up. You've just published a book on all things leadership.
Yep.
And so, some of these principles I'm talking through, I'm sure you cover them in your book, right? Can you give us some sort of insight and wisdom to how you play above the line?
Well, I think let me go back to my story. Maybe that'll help also to set the context, because one of the things, and you also have an IT background, don't you?
I wouldn't necessarily call it programming like yours, but I could definitely build out funnels and websites and do all that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yes.
So one of the things that we were taught, and I'm talking back in the 1980s and 90s, so that goes back a ways, but we're taught on time, within budget, at all cost. And so a lot of that meant you were managing people to make sure you delivered the product to your client on time, within budget, at all costs. And the all costs often meant at the cost of people. And
Mm.
so what I learned from that as I watched not only my own performance, but that of those around me and fellow project managers, I noticed that that didn't work very well because we would lose people. They would burn
You
out.
lose
And
the
we,
human element out, right? You're just focused on the bottom line.
exactly. And so
Mm.
having learned that, and it took me a while, it took me a few years, but that's where the whole, and let me hold up my book,
There
Lead
you go.
Smarter,
Lead smarter, not harder.
Lead Smarter, Not Harder. The idea being is that I looked at essential skills of leadership, not the process skills of management.
Big
The
difference.
below the below the line was, to me, what you described as below the line. To me, that was the process part of the management. Come heck or high water, make sure it happens, right?
Yeah.
But I found I could get more out of people by treating them as people and working above that line, being a leader rather than their manager.
Right. So I've gone through management school and all that sort of thing, and I know in my toxic traits I can micromanage. I know I'm guilty of that, and I'm aware of that. So I've evolved and I've done a lot of work on that space, and part of that journey for me was learning how I was wired. So doing things like the Enneagram profile, the Myers-Briggs types profile, figuring out what my strengths are, but also figuring out what my toxic traits are and all of that sort of thing. So this is what you're talking about, right? It's talking about the human equation of this whole conversation. And essentially, for me, the way I like to sum it up is I learned to love myself so I can learn to love something bigger than myself, so I can learn to love others and operate out of this energy of love versus fear. And I think this is a really important conversation that needs to be had, especially in this leadership circle. So, what are some of your insights that you can add to that conversation?
Well, just kind of jumping off what you just said. In fact, in the book, after I kind of describe what I mean by leadership,
Mm.
and and by the way, I throw in a chapter there on common sense because there's so much non-common
I
sense.
know, right? That's a funny paradoxical thing.
I prefer to have uncommon common sense, meaning it's rare, uncommon.
Yeah.
Um, but immediately go into, and again, jumping off your last point, immediately going into what is called emotional intelligence.
Mm.
And that really has two parts. One is know thyself, And once you know thyself, then you can relate to or externalize to other people and bring them into that equation so that you can
Right.
understand their motivation.
Mm. Yeah, some powerful conversations there, and I know that there's some sort of really awesome stuff that happens with your belief and your posture and your confidence when you know yourself and you can operate out of your genius zone space and your heart space. Um, these are skills that I believe that should be taught at school, but probably
Yeah,
aren't.
yeah,
And,
absolutely.
so I know as a father, 3 young boys, 13, 12, and 9, these are some of the things that we're already starting to work on as a family. And straight away, by them learning how they're wired, their strengths, knowing themselves and self-evaluated, self-wisdom space, I can already see their leadership gifting being activated right away. And you can see them performing better in school and their circle of friends. And, my oldest son, Harrison, he's got designs of being a rock star, like all of us do at that age. But I can actually see him facilitating that dream and actually seeing him actually becoming a rock star and doing all that just because of these soft skills, these emotional intelligence skills that he's learning to master the craft of communication.
Yeah.
And I put up a post on Facebook the other day, and I'm going somewhere with this, so bear with me. I put up a post on Facebook the other day. A lot of entrepreneurs, they want to learn how to do the marketing. They want to learn how to do the social media. They want to make sure their website's right. They want to make sure the mechanics right. But I've come to learn in my 18 years of doing this, the fundamental essential skill that we need to master is our communication. And that starts with that mindset and posture and belief and all of that. Essentially, how can you lead anybody if you can't lead yourself conversation? So do you have some tips for our audience here to be able to help them to unpack this and learn how to become better effective communicators from a space from a position of leadership?
Well, that's I'm laughing now because the next chapter in my book after emotional intelligence is communication.
Oh,
And,
I love it. And guys, I
mm,
haven't read this book yet, by the way.
and I split it into written and I split and in personal communication, including public speaking.
Well, there
But
you go. It's already
what
a great book. I already know it's a great book.
and that's only halfway through. I think what I found with communication, again, going back to emotional intelligence, the empathy that has to come through, the
Mm,
understanding where the person is coming from, and what I also understood from learn this the hard way, by the way, is I messaging versus you messaging. If
ooh,
I say you
powerful.
did this wrong versus this is how I felt about your activity or your action, there's a
Mm,
whole different messaging. One is a
mm,
blame game. One is a I'm here to help you game. So
service. I've been of service, not control. Yeah.
correct. Yeah. So to me, iMessaging and that by the way, that comes through in your written skills as well, in your written
Of course it
memos
does.
or
Of course
yeah,
it does.
all of that stuff. So
Mm,
I was
that's powerful.
I was at a conference on Saturday and one of the people said, take a transcript of say a speech that you've given or a presentation you've given. And then just have Word go through and count the number of I's and count the number of U's, me's or hours, that sort of thing. And if you are more than if you are less than 2 to 1 U ratio to I ratio, you're too much in I focus, right? You have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to relate to them as opposed to just talking about yourself. So one,
That's a really good tip. I'm actually going to have to go try that myself. That's a good record of account keeping in that space and inspect what you expect, but
yeah,
catching yourself on that. I love that.
yeah. Little
Mm,
different than the I message versus you message. You did this to me versus I
mm.
felt this way. But in terms of, again, when you're publicly speaking, you want to be able to make that message go to you as opposed to just focusing on I. So yeah, it's great, great, great tips.
That's brilliant. So I've been a student of leadership in myself in my 20 years and still very much just a student, really, at the end of the day. But I've consumed a lot of material, a lot of content on this space, and I've applied a lot of the lessons that I've learnt along the way. One of the things that has been really valuable for me and something I find myself falling back on teaching other people as a mentor all the time is basically doing their internal health check. Right. So if we want our external world to be successful, right, looking the part, then most of the time it's not external pressures that are our problem. It's always internal. And this is going that know yourself going inwards. So, the internal health check is to get the flywheel, if the inner gear working, so the outer gears can work a little bit more fluid.
Yeah.
So, internal health, right? Emotional, spiritual, financial, physical, and relational in those areas of health. What are your sort of takeaways, your insight, wisdom that you'd like to share on getting this part of the leadership journey, the know yourself journey right, and working in a space that helps you to be more fluid and grow in this space? Because I know from my own journey, from someone who almost tried to kill himself to the person I am today, working on this internal health area has been one of the things that have helped facilitate my own growth. I'd love to unpack this a little bit deeper with you.
Well, I probably have several areas in that. One I know is that over the years, I have observed my reaction in certain situations.
Mm.
And I have a quick trigger in terms of getting my ire up. I have this sense of it has to be right. so
Yeah, I get
so
that.
you
That
know, like,
righteousness almost. Yeah.
yeah, that righteous indignation. And in my youth, that would come out sometimes in anger, sometimes in sarcasm, sometimes, just not a very you focused approach, right? And
More
so,
reactional versus response.
right. And having watched myself or observed myself do that, and actually having watched other people react, I
Mm.
learned then to internalize that and come out with more of a question as opposed to a response, as opposed to a
Yes,
reaction.
it's funny you say that. I've done the same thing.
Yeah, come up with it just a response that way. So that's one
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
and that's part of that know yourself aspect. I think
Mm.
the other thing is I get up early in the morning, very early.
Yes.
People look at my white hair and say, "Well, yeah, you probably do get up early in the morning because old people do." But
Y-
but no, I get up very early in the morning, and I spend time. I'm very. I don't want to say spiritual. I want to say relational
Yeah.
with the God above, and in
Yeah.
doing so, I spend time in um, the Old Testament, the Jewish Testament, as well as the New Testament, and just kind of ground myself for the day. And
Yeah.
that really helps in how I react to people during the day.
I love that because actually I'm working to be an accredited pastor myself. My wife and I started an online church about 18 months ago. And, I was an atheist 11 years ago, and now, it's church planting, right? It's a radical
Yeah.
journey in that space. But part of what you just said there, getting up early, I've done this now for the last decade, getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, spending the first half an hour in the Word of God, and what I call soaping.
Yeah.
I read a chapter a day. I look for the piece of scripture that living words speaking to my heart. And I don't just take it in, I look for ways to actually apply it to my
Yes.
life. And,
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing for leaders, right? Leaders are readers, but we're also in that space. I learned a long time ago. I don't want to just be a sponge, just consuming a lot of information. I want to be in a space where I'm actually going from informed to formed or forming in
Yeah.
that space, right? So, Tony Robbins says it all the time that, information is great, but it's only in the applied information space that we actually get results. And so I love that. So for our audience, I love you to let us know, what do you do in this space to be able to help you on your growth journey? And is if getting up at joining the 5 a.m. club and spending some time there in the Word or meditation or journaling, whatever that is, I highly recommend it. It's been something that's been a huge asset to me, and it sounds like it's been a huge asset to you, Merv.
Yeah. One of the things I do is I follow various reading plans that
Mm.
take me through the entire Bible every year. So every year for the
Yeah,
last
the
several years.
Bible app. That's a really good one.
Yeah, it's called YouVersion, I think.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I
Yeah.
use. Yes, EU version.
Yeah. So
Brilliant tool.
I go through and I'll tell you what, when you get into some of those, like, is it the Chronicles where you have to go through
The
4,000 years of,
the listicles of it all. I
yeah.
every time I'll freely admit, every time I go, God, do you really want me to read this?
But, I listened to a gentleman a little while ago, and the reason it's there is now they're finding archaeological digs, finding those
Right?
exact names and relationships. So it's like it's a
Fascinating.
proof of the
Yeah.
truth of what we're reading. So yeah, I spend time in that. I spend time thinking through what I just read. I
Mm.
do jot down. I've got a journal where I jot down some things. And quite frankly, I probably spend more time praying about what I messed up yesterday and not to do it again today. But
Yeah, I'm guilty of that too. Yep, definitely a work in progress
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
So it sounds like we've been on similar sort of journeys. You're much further ahead of it, of course. But on that leadership track. So I like to learn from a lot of the greats, and you're definitely going to be on that list. I can't wait to get your book to read from it. But some of the people that I've aspired to learn from, like Zig Ziglar,
Ziegler, yeah.
Patrick Lencioni was another book that really comes to mind. I love all things John Maxwell, all things Jim Rohn. So who have been some of your mentors that you've been reading through or aspired to be like? Who have helped shape your conversations and the person you are today?
My reading is very eclectic.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm just John MacArthur, who just passed away.
Okay.
John MacArthur is a California, fairly well-known pastor here in California. Um, Scott McCain. Scott
Hmm.
McCain is a well-known. He's part of the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame speaker.
Yep,
So
I've heard of Scott. Yeah.
yeah, Scott. I follow Scott's book. He's got 3 or 4 great books in terms of being iconic in
Hmm.
your profession. Um, Probably, and Tony Robbins. I'm looking. I've got one,
Of course you
two,
have.
three, four, 5 shelves of books here that go
Of
to the
course you have.
ceiling.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pick out some names, but yeah, it's just
Yeah.
people who are very positive in their approach and very, quite frankly, very wise in their approach to applying is the
Yeah.
word you use. So that's
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And so you've just launched your new book. You're about to launch a new podcast in a few weeks. Tell us a bit about your podcast and where you hope to see that going. Like give a bit of a vision cast and opportunity for a bit of a plug.
yeah. So based on the book, well, let me back up again. I worked with a colleague for a while on the project management body of knowledge. Now, does that not sound enlightening and just enthralling and something you'd want to speak about? Yes.
Oh.
But get this, we did 120 one-hour podcasts
Wow.
on the PMI Project Management
Oh, I'm
Institutes.
sure some people will find that riveting.
Some do.
I just know it's not me.
But here's what's interesting. I got bored with it, even though I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
grabbed it, and I thought, no, I'm really all about leading people, not managing process. And so
Hmm.
I convinced my colleague to do this podcast. The last year we did 120 20-minute episodes on exactly what we've been talking about now, those essential skills of leadership.
I love that.
And, and although it was kind of IT focused because we're both IT, the principles that I took from those podcast episodes, put them in the book and made it more generic, not
Mm.
in terms of general principles, but in terms of
More
generic
more
leaders.
universal. More
More,
universal. Yeah.
yes, that's a
Yeah.
better name. So whether you're a lay leader, whether you're managing your parent teacher
Yeah.
association, whether wherever it is, or running an IBM or a Deloitte and Touche or something like that,
Yeah.
it's all effective.
I
Yeah,
think there's a space for in leadership and marketing, especially. There's a space for niching down and
right.
serving a specific audience. But look at the greats. Look at Zig Ziglar. Look at Brian Tracy. Look at the Tony Robbins and all that. Their teachings are timeless, meaning that they're
Yeah,
evergreen. So what's like Napoleon Hill, right? We all talk about Think and Grow Rich. That
yeah,
book was written over 100 years ago. It's
yeah.
timeless. But the principles, just like the Bible, that's timeless. The principles apply today and they applied back then. And also, I've found a lot of the greats in this space, their teaching is universal. So it doesn't matter what category you're in. And I'm even myself starting to realize this. Like I've gone through my own journey, being the website guy, the funnel guy, the AI guy, the blah, blah, blah guy, realizing now that my passion is in this conversation. It's the leadership, it's the equipping, it's the building up of people conversation, what I thrive on. And I just love connecting with like-minded people like yourself in this space.
So let me just real quick before we finish that particular part, because you asked me to do a plug and I'd like to do that.
Yes,
So the
please.
new podcast is me interviewing people like yourself. And by the way, I'm inviting you right now to
Let's
become
do
one
it.
of them. Let's do it. Yes. But the podcast will be called Lead with Purpose. and it will be interviewing people who have mastered, who are gurus in those essential skills of leadership, not in the process skills of management.
I love it.
Yeah.
Bring it on. I can't wait to be a guest on yours, but thank you very much for saying yes to being a guest on the Hero Makers conversation here. Before we go, Merv, where can our people find you? Where can they tune in and connect with you, and how can they get in touch?
My website is peoplefirstprojectmanagement.com. And I know it's related to project management, but as you said, the principles are timeless.
Yeah.
And my email is merv@peoplefirstprojectmanagement.com. Or if you really want the short version, it's mjersak@gmail.com.
Cool. All right, too
It's
easy.
the short
Well,
version.
we'll make sure all those are in the show notes for our
Cool.
people to connect. And for our audience listening, thank you for tuning in. And we'd love to know, what was the light bulb moment? What was the thing that spoke to your heart? Let us know in the comments. And if you've got any strategies or tips to be able to help us to, specifically help us to improve our application of what we learned, we would love to hear from you too. So please engage, please, share this out, subscribe, of course, do all of that jazz. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Merv, thank you very much for saying yes. This has been an amazing conversation. I look forward to having you come back on a guest down the road. And I can't wait to be a guest on your new podcast that we're about to launch. Thanks very much,
Appreciate you
Merv.
so much. Appreciate you so much, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.